Chapter 1, The Little Drama King. Annabel Kennedy pursed her lips before the mirror, its surface reflecting her delicate and refined features. A 6-year-old boy standing beside her placed a finger on his chin, then after a long moment, hesitantly spoke, "Mother, your lipstick isn't glamorous enough." "What did you say?" Annabel Kennedy adjusted her collar in the mirror. The boy, standing at the doorway, chattered on, "With such pale lipstick, how can you compete with those scarlet-lipped vixens? Your boss definitely won't hire you if you don't wear some. You little rascal." Annabel Kennedy whirled around, grabbed the jade-like boy at the door, plopped him down on her thigh, pulled down his pants, and spanked his bottom. Smack. "Even if you spank me, it's useless. In this flourishing cloud city, if you don't put yourself out there, you won't get anywhere. I'm your mother. How dare you tell me what to do?" Smack, smack. 2 swift slaps landed on the boy's bottom. The boy's eyes welled up. "Mother, I'm only advising you out of necessity. Don't you understand?" Hearing her son spout a familiar string of proverbs, Annabel Kennedy fumed, "Ethan Kennedy, you know so many idioms, why are your language arts grades still so poor?" The boy pouted, "Isn't it because you won't let me watch erudite historical dramas like The Legend of Empresses?" Annabel Kennedy froze, exasperated by her son's excuse. Gnashing her teeth, she raised her hand, "I think I should really just spank you to death." Smack, 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 smack. "Ow, ow, ow, ow. Mother, you're trying to kill me. Help." The boy's fair bottom was repeatedly smacked, his childish wails piercing through the bathroom door. Sophia Turner, sipping tea outside, shook her head in exasperation. Setting down her cup, she knocked gently, interrupting the drama within, "Annabel, it's time for your interview." "Wait a minute, I need to give this little rascal a couple more swats." "Don't be like that." Sophia Turner pleaded earnestly, "Even if you don't know which man fathered this child, he's still your son. Go easy on him, or people will think you're his stepmother." Perhaps those last 2 words did the trick. 3 minutes later, Annabel Kennedy emerged from the bathroom, her face flushed with anger. "Stop feeling sorry for him. Hurry up and take me to my interview. If I still can't find a job, I'll have to sell him next month." Seeing her friend's reluctance to revisit the topic of her unwed pregnancy, Sophia Turner quickly opened the door and left the rented apartment with her. Honestly, who would want to bring it up? After all, Annabel Kennedy wasn't even 19 when she gave birth to Ethan Kennedy. The most unbelievable thing was that Annabel Kennedy didn't even know who the child's father was, or what he looked like. However, judging by the child's adorable, delicate features, the father was likely a strikingly handsome man with strong genes. After all, the child was exceptionally cute and handsome. Raising this mischievous son on her own made Annabel Kennedy's life incredibly difficult. Despite being an all-around prodigy before 18, after giving birth and experiencing a series of life changes, she became somewhat slow and scatterbrained. Sophia Turner floored her Lamborghini to 180 miles per hour, nearly drifting on a turn. Chapter 2, The handsome interviewer. Sophia Turner, the eldest daughter of the Turner family, with a big sister Aura, had always looked out for Annabel Kennedy and her son, Ethan Kennedy, since his birth. In school, she was the top dog. In society, she was a queen and a fashionista in everyone's eyes. Yet, she still didn't have a boyfriend. Ethan Kennedy had warned her many times, "Mother, with your beauty, you'll make that rogue Sophia Turner have wicked thoughts if you're not careful." Annabel Kennedy pondered for a moment, then analyzed the situation with her son. "Do you think Sophia wants to adopt you?" Ethan Kennedy's beautiful little face immediately paled, and from then on, he never threw himself into Sophia Turner's arms again. Sophia Turner often hinted at Ethan Kennedy's coldness towards her, and while Annabel Kennedy was aware, she remained silent. Now, seeing them arrive in the bustling Cloud City from the border town, Sophia Turner, without a word, immediately sought employment for Annabel Kennedy to ensure Ethan Kennedy had a good living environment. Yes, that's right, she found a job for her and called her in for an interview. Stepping into the cafe, Annabel Kennedy felt the space was elegantly intimidating. Beside the dimly lit, upscale piano at the reception desk, a man melancholically played the famous piece, for Elise. Small green vines partitioned the cafe space. Thinking of the interviewer's table number, Annabel Kennedy told the waiter, "Please lead me to table 52. It's on the second floor, please come this way." The waiter respectfully guided her to the second floor. Table 52 was by the window, and beside the gold-clothed table sat a man in a light gray shirt. The man had slightly long hair, a jade-like face, thin lips, white teeth, and his hazel eyes held a gentle smile, like peach blossoms that invited reverie. After some thought, Annabel Kennedy decided devastatingly handsome was the best way to describe this beautiful man. However, this handsome man was her interviewer, so she needed to be serious. So, after nodding and naturally taking a seat, she quickly introduced herself to the slightly surprised man. "Hello, my name is Annabel Kennedy. You've probably reviewed my resume. I'm 24 years old, previously lived in a border town, and now I'm in Cloud City. Sophia Turner recommended me for the housekeeper position. First, let me talk about my strengths. I can cook, do laundry, clean, and I'm very experienced in caring for the elderly and children. If you hire me, I can guarantee I'll make your family happy." The man stared at her in astonishment. "You want to be my housekeeper?" "Yes, I can even handle someone with dementia." Annabel Kennedy's lips curved into a perfect smile, revealing 8 teeth as flawlessly aligned as a flight attendant's. Yet, this confident and serious interview unexpectedly made the interviewer burst out laughing. Annabel Kennedy found this strange. Watching him laugh with his head down, she couldn't help but tilt her head and ask, "Excuse me, is something the matter?" The man, looking at her innocent tilted head, couldn't suppress his laughter. His handsome face turned towards her, and he asked with amusement, "Annabel, no, Miss Kennedy, are you applying to be a maid?" "Yes. Working as my maid requires meeting very strict conditions." His slender fingers tapped elegantly on the tabletop. Just then, the waiter arrived with the coffee the man had ordered. He took it, barely glancing at it, and pushed it directly towards Annabel Kennedy. Annabel Kennedy politely pushed it back. "I'm here for an interview, you don't need to offer me anything. Don't be so formal. I'll have a lot of questions for you, so you can drink this to wet your throat." Feeling slightly uneasy, Annabel Kennedy accepted the coffee. Seeing her wince after a sip from the bitterness, the man turned to the waiter and instructed, "Get her a chocolate milk." The waiter promptly left. Annabel Kennedy inquired, "Aren't you getting one for yourself?" "I already ordered." "Where is it?" Annabel Kennedy curiously looked around for his drink. He extended his long arm, picked up the black coffee she had taken a sip from, and took a small sip himself. Annabel Kennedy nearly choked on what she had just drunk and hurriedly grabbed his wrist. "I already drank from that, Chapter 3, the rich kid." The man smiled, placing the cup down, and said gently, "It's all right. Aren't you worried I might have something contagious? I believe maid applicants are required to submit a health certificate." Annabel Kennedy nodded. "Yes, I'm healthy. I don't have any genetic diseases or any contagious illnesses. Do you have any other relatives?" "I'm afraid not. A few years ago, I was in a car accident and suffered a head injury. After that, my foster mother passed away, and I have no other relatives left. That's unfortunate. I apologize for bringing up such painful memories." Annabel Kennedy lowered her eyes, a hint of sadness in her expression. "It's okay. Do you want this job?" Annabel Kennedy nodded vigorously, her eyes filled with hope as she looked at him. "I sincerely hope you'll give me this opportunity. However, my maid needs to adhere to many conditions." "Can you?" He hesitated slightly. "Can you handle them?" "As long as the salary is enough for me to cover my living expenses, I'll do my best to meet those conditions." This was the truth. If she couldn't find a job to support herself, she'd be left with nothing but the northwest wind to drink. Even though Sophia Turner was kind enough to help her and her child, she couldn't impose on her forever. Seeing her determination, the man was pleased. A smile slowly spread across his alluring eyes. After accepting this job, you'll have to live with me. Live together? Annabelle Kennedy was taken aback for a moment, then quickly replied, no problem, plenty of housekeepers live with their employers. You must obey me. What I forbid, you must not do. Yes, yes. Living with the homeowner, naturally, she had to follow their habits and couldn't go against their wishes. If you accept this job, you'll need to use your ID card, household registration book, and come with me to the authorities to register. Is that all right? All right, an employment contract must be signed. One final clause. Please, tell me. The man smiled gently. The termination of the contract is at my discretion. Annabelle Kennedy rejoiced inwardly. If it was long-term, wouldn't she be free from worries about food and expenses? But you can't fire me in under 3 months. If he used her for a bit, discovered her advertisements were a tad exaggerated, and then fired her, it wouldn't be worth it. The man nodded. I don't think I'll fire you within a year. Annabelle Kennedy was instantly reassured, thrilled to have found such a good job. When do we sign the employment contract? If you have your ID and household registration book, we can do it right now. Annabelle Kennedy hurriedly pulled out her ID and household registration book, handing them over. I have them right here. Better to sign the contract to be safe, lest things change overnight. The man's lips curved into a dazzling smile as he took her ID, examined it carefully, then stood up. Let's go then, my car is in the parking lot downstairs. For some reason, as Annabelle Kennedy followed the man downstairs, she felt many eyes on them. She curiously asked the man ahead, Sir. My name is William Grant. Well then, Mr. Grant. He interrupted her, correcting, call me William. Oh, isn't that a bit too familiar? She felt awkward. William Grant didn't seem to mind. His long, slender legs slowed slightly as he smiled at her. My friends all call me that. Since you'll be living with me, you'll get used to it. Oh. She nodded, about to ask something else. Suddenly, a flash went off before her eyes, followed by the click of a phone camera. Look, it's William Grant. The excited squeal of a young woman drew the attention of even more people. Several people rose from their seats on the first floor, looking their way. William Grant pulled her into his arms and walked out, holding her close. It's a bit awkward, but my admirers love to take pictures of anyone near me. To protect your privacy, hide in my embrace for a moment. But, She struggled to lift her head. William Grant paid her no mind, his long, elegant fingers pressing her head down, maintaining his protective posture. The click of cameras continued around them. Annabelle Kennedy truly couldn't fathom why so many people were taking her picture. Waiting until she was tucked into the passenger seat, she brushed aside the slightly messy hair in front of her face, then questioned William Grant, who was opening the driver's side door to get in. Why are so many people taking your picture? Because my status attracts quite a bit of attention. He grinned, nearly blinding Annabelle Kennedy with his dazzling smile. Annabelle Kennedy recalled the tenant status Sophia Turner had told her about, the heir to a powerful family. Well, duh, you're loaded. Hashtag Chapter 4, the Civil Affairs Bureau. William Grant expertly started the car, sped away from the crowd incessantly snapping pictures of him with a click, and drove straight to an office building. She wanted to see the bold, large characters on the office building, but with a clunk, William Grant lowered the sun visor. Too much sun, be careful, you'll hurt your eyes. What kind of bureau is this? I see the word bureau. The Labor Bureau. William Grant unbuckled his seatbelt, then leaned over to help her unbuckle hers. The safety buckle clicked open with a clunk. Annabel Kennedy watched William Grant's bowed head, caught a whiff of the fresh, masculine scent of his cologne, and blushed involuntarily. The Labor Bureau was crowded, and William Grant, seemingly to conceal his identity, had put on a pair of black sunglasses while still in the car. "Why are you wearing sunglasses in this weather?" Annabel Kennedy looked at him curiously. "To avoid being recognized." William Grant clearly had reservations. Annabel Kennedy reassured him, "You're just signing an employment contract with me, not robbing a bank or committing murder. No one's going to chase after you." Having said that, she walked straight towards the front window. But the line was too long, and William Grant, seeing her patiently queuing, seemed a bit anxious. Annabel Kennedy kindly reminded him, "Actually, if we're signing an employment contract, we can just draft an agreement ourselves. I absolutely won't go back on my word." William Grant's lips curved into a gentle smile, and in that moment, he eclipsed the surrounding young men, all of whom became mere background figures to him. Immediately, someone exclaimed, "Look, that looks like William Grant. It's Will." Before the person could finish speaking, Annabel Kennedy's ear buzzed as William Grant shoved an earbud into it. Loud music blasted through the earbud, Travis Scott's Beat Drop. Annabel Kennedy really liked this tune, but why was William Grant covering her ears so tightly? "William, I'm going deaf." William Grant, hearing her voice, opened his mouth slightly to say something. But the sound in the earbud was truly too loud, she couldn't hear what he was saying at all. She tried to take the earbud out, but William Grant shook his head at her, signaling her not to. She had no choice but to endure it with a frown. William Grant raised his hand to make a phone call, and in less than a minute, a staff member came over and beckoned him to follow. William Grant pulled Annabel Kennedy into a room, followed by the staff member, who chattered non-stop to William Grant with a beaming smile. She wanted to remove her headphones again, but this time William Grant didn't stop her. Instead, after helping her take them off, he adjusted her hair and then led her to sit in front of a camera. Men on the left, women on the right. "Do I need to take a picture for a labor contract?" "Of course, this is a very serious matter. Now, tilt your head a little. Yes, good, just like that, darling." There was no click sound, only a flash of light. Afterward, William Grant had her sign a few papers, then took 2 red books and led her out through the back door. Annabel Kennedy silently calculated her future living expenses in her mind, but before she could finish, the phone in her pocket suddenly rang. She took out her phone, saw it was Sophia Turner, and immediately answered, "Sophia." "Annabel Kennedy, I haven't seen you for 15 minutes, and you've already disappeared. Where are you now? Didn't you say you were going to interview for a housekeeping job at Mr. Morton's? Tell me where you are right now." Sophia Turner's fierce tone sounded like she was about to transform into a ferocious demon crawling out of the phone. But, that's not the point. The point is. Interview. She looked at the tall, handsome man beside her in surprise and asked Sophia Turner in confusion, "Didn't I just finish the interview? I just signed a labor contract with my employer at the Labor Department." There was a strange silence on the other end of the line. "Annabel, where are you now?" "Labor." As soon as she said the 2 words, she looked at the words on the back door, the corner of her mouth twitched, and she corrected her answer, "Civil Affairs Bureau." Chapter 5, a male celebrity. Sophia Turner flew into a rage, leaving behind a sentence, "Don't you dare move," before slamming the phone down. After Sophia Turner hung up on her in anger, Annabel Kennedy recalled Sophia's level of fury and glared at William Grant beside her. "Sir, can you explain to me what we just did?" "Marriage certificate." He then handed her one of the 2 marriage certificates. Annabel Kennedy grabbed it, looked at the words and date written on it, along with their photo together, and indeed confirmed that it was a marriage certificate. Her mind went blank for 2 seconds, then she raised her hand to tear the marriage certificate in half. William Grant's pleasant voice came just in time, if you tear it, you won't be able to get a divorce. She immediately froze all her movements. William Grant said to her in a serious yet roguish tone, actually, a husband and wife relationship is also a kind of long-term labor contract. I don't have the time or energy to build a relationship until marriage, so I found you quite suitable and decided to sign a long-term marriage contract with you. The salary is not a problem, as long as you cooperate well with me. But I came for an interview, not to get married. You passed the interview with flying colors. Congratulations on being hired as my wife. After saying that, he smiled and reached out to hug her. Annabel Kennedy flung his hand away, gritting her teeth, but I only do housework. It's all right, if you enjoy housework, I can indulge you. You don't need to worry about this. This is marriage fraud. You said, to get a livelihood, you would agree to all my conditions. Annabel Kennedy suddenly fell silent. Perhaps silence was a little inappropriate at this moment. But, if she didn't want to end up on the streets, if she didn't want to put Ethan Kennedy in an orphanage, then she had to shoulder the burden of life. A proper job was essential, moreover, it was urgent. Perhaps the troubled expression on her face betrayed her inner turmoil. William Grant placed his hands on her shoulders, looking at her. Annabel, no. Annabel Kennedy, this job won't put you at a disadvantage. But. She still wanted to say something. But before she could speak, she heard a screeching break. Followed by a violent slam of a car door opening and then slamming shut. Annabel Kennedy shuddered, looking in terror towards the source of the sound. Sophia Turner strode forward, murderous aura radiating from her, perched on 10-centimeter high heels. Annabel Kennedy felt that in this situation, Sophia Turner might reach out and tear her apart. Sure enough, as soon as Sophia Turner saw her, she loudly questioned, Annabel Kennedy, have you lost your mind? Annabel Kennedy recoiled half a step, wanting to shrink into a ball, defensively bracing for an attack. But a large hand gripped her waist, stopping her retreat, and a magnetically smooth voice, with a hint of a smile, warned Sophia. Turner, please respect my wife, don't yell at her in public. Annabel Kennedy was completely taken aback by William Grant's reaction. If anyone spoke to Sophia Turner like that, they would definitely receive her murderous question, who the hell are you? Get lost. Mind your own business. But. This time, Sophia Turner was speechless, staring wide-eyed at William Grant for a long time, her mouth agape in an exaggerated manner. Just when Annabel Kennedy thought Sophia Turner might have encountered a nemesis, Sophia Turner suddenly called out, cousin. Annabel Kennedy. Could someone please tell her what was going on? Sophia Turner adjusted her expression, her eyes questioning William Grant strangely, why are you here? William Grant brandished the marriage certificate in his hand, his lips curving into a slight smile, I just got married. Sophia Turner looked at Annabel Kennedy with a horrified gaze, fixated on the marriage certificate in her hand. You, with Annabel Kennedy? You should call her sister-in-law now, Sophia. Cousin, are you crazy? Do you still want a career in the entertainment industry? Sophia Turner exclaimed, her voice involuntarily rising, do you know that your hasty marriage will upset your fans? Besides, Emily Carter will be back from America soon. Annabel Kennedy was very confused. Entertainment industry. Fans. This guy, is a celebrity. ####. Chapter 6, Important things. Sophia Turner remained agitated, rambling on and on. Cousin, you absolutely cannot marry Annabel. It seems you're overstepping, Sophia. William Grant's tone was slightly cold. Sophia Turner was momentarily stunned, like a bucket of cold water had been poured over her. Cousin, didn't you say you were always looking for a wife? Have you forgotten? William Grant's gaze was indifferent, unchanged, he only reminded her, this is my affair. Having said that, he opened the car door, inviting Sophia Turner to get out. On the main street of Cloud City's downtown, traffic was bustling, the flow of people ceaseless. But William Grant's driving was excellent, calmly navigating the road. Annabel Kennedy felt she might have caused a conflict between the cousins, feeling a bit uneasy. Well, don't blame yourself, Sophia Turner doesn't want you to marry me for your own good. Actually, I could choose a different job, I don't necessarily have to do this one. So, it's still best to get a divorce quickly. I heard Sophia mention you, she said you were in a car accident and don't remember anything before you turned 18. Yeah. So, do you remember having any survival skills? She didn't even remember her own last name, how could she remember any survival skills? Actually, we've met before. Annabel Kennedy abruptly lifted her head, my mind is messed up, don't try to trick me. William Grant glanced at her helplessly, a gentle smile playing on his lips, enough to make anyone blush and swoon. I'm not tricking you, I promise. We really have met before. Once, a memorable encounter. Annabel Kennedy wanted to ask something more. But William Grant turned the steering wheel, pulling into a high-end apartment complex. The front gate slowly lifted, and he drove into the complex. The Ferraris and Porsches parked within made her eyes widen. As soon as William Grant stopped the car, camera flashes went off ahead. William Grant looked in the rearview mirror, shaking his head helplessly. Why are there so many reporters taking pictures of you? Are you a celebrity? William Grant got out of the car, opened the door for her, and offered his hand. My work requires me to be in the public eye. Annabel Kennedy recoiled, don't touch me, my mind is messed up, I don't remember who you are, what if you're a huge star, your fans will come after me. William Grant was amused by her, his eyes gentle yet exasperated. We're home, you have to get out of the car eventually. I can do it myself. She carefully got out of the car by herself, after which she deliberately looked left and right, checking if anyone was secretly taking pictures. However, after taking just 2 steps, she felt something was wrong and looked up at William Grant beside her. Why did you bring me straight to your house like this? We're married, so we should live together, didn't we talk about this before the wedding? Annabel Kennedy couldn't find a reason to argue, but even so, she felt she couldn't just move into William Grant's house so quickly. No, I have to go back to my own house. If your house ain't got no dosh or fancy trinkets, no need to go back, I'll get you new stuff. She paused, touched by this supremely generous offer. But the pause was brief, and she continued on her way. No can do, I left something real important at home. On the way back, William Grant's brow furrowed slightly, his handsome face clouded with contemplation as he wondered what could be so important to Annabel Kennedy. As a result, after she unlocked the door with a click. The child, tottering around the living room in his mother's high heels, flinched, then turned around in horrified paralysis. Ethan Kennedy. #### Chapter 7, The Little Rascal, You're Wearing My High Heels Again. Ethan Kennedy kicked off the high heels in fright and scrambled to hug his mother's leg. Mother dearest, mother, please hear my explanation. I was merely experiencing the suffering of a bound woman. Flower-shaped shoe soles, foot binding, these rules that seem to adorn women are actually psychological shackles, and also the cause of women's perversion. This little tyke's gotten too into those period dramas. No wonder your kindergarten teacher keeps hinting I should show you war movies. Mom, our kindergarten teacher is a die-hard fan of The Legend of Empresses. She's just jealous, 'cause I remember all the lines from The Legend of Empresses, that's why she's telling you that. She's framing me. Annabel Kennedy bent down, intending to detach her son from her leg for a good scolding. But the child clung to her like a vine, and even with considerable force, she couldn't peel him off. Defeated, she could only take a deep, exasperated breath before trying again. All right, son, let go of me. Huh? Ethan Kennedy uttered his usual expression of doubt. Seeing his hesitation, Annabel Kennedy immediately pulled him off. Tossed to the floor like a rag doll, Ethan Kennedy picked himself up, turned, gave William Grant a good once-over with his big, round eyes, and then seriously asked his mother, Mother, why is this man in our house? He's our new landlord. Mother, that's William Grant. Ethan Kennedy pointed directly at William Grant's nose without missing a beat. Do you know him? Annabelle Kennedy was surprised. The only people her son knew were the gardener and his kindergarten classmates. Mom, he's the main character in the TV show that's on the channel next to The Legend of Empresses. He's William Grant from The Map of Mountains and Rivers. Annabelle Kennedy wasn't much of a TV and movie watcher. Moreover, Greenhaven used to be quite remote, without even internet access, and she was too busy making ends meet to keep up with entertainment news. Hearing her son's explanation, she simply assumed William Grant was an actor, perhaps even a star. But what was with Ethan Kennedy's fiery, indignant glare? Ethan Kennedy rose from the floor, his eyes fixed on William Grant with a cold, fierce intensity, his small frame radiating a murderous aura unbefitting a kindergartner. William Grant, sensing the child's unusual behavior, raised an eyebrow slightly, a smile still on his face. Son, do you have a problem with me? Ethan Kennedy glared defiantly. Pfft. Who's your son? Then whose son are you? My father is. The words that should have flowed smoothly from the boy's mouth caught in his throat. Then Ethan Kennedy's right foot pawed the ground twice like a bull's, he lowered his head and roared, and charged towards William Grant. While charging, he yelled, I want to puncture your lungs. Avenge Sister Dandin. Of course, with Ethan Kennedy's height of less than 1 meter and William Grant's height of 1 meter and 86 centimeters, it was clear who would have the last laugh. Half an hour later, Annabelle Kennedy packed her valuable belongings while listening to Ethan Kennedy's heartbroken sobs. In the living room, separated by a door, Ethan Kennedy sat on a small chair, rubbing his eyes with both hands, crying his guts out. For a continuous half an hour, the boy cried until he was tired, rested for a while, and then cried again, finally succeeding in extending his crying time to over 50 minutes. William Grant squatted down, seeing the child crying so heartbrokenly, he couldn't help but comfort him. Ethan, you don't need to be so heartbroken that you can't beat me. I will definitely beat you when I grow up. Don't fool yourself, you won't be able to beat me even when you grow up. Wah! Annabelle Kennedy finished packing her luggage, turned around, and asked William Grant helplessly, he's still just a child, can you please not bully him like that? William Grant gently stroked Ethan Kennedy's head and replied with a smile, I'm not bullying him, I actually quite like him. I know this child is not related to you by blood, I'm bringing him along like a little tail. If you feel uncomfortable, we can cancel the employment contract immediately. No need, didn't you say he's very important to you? William Grant lifted the child from the small chair, I won't take away what's important to you. Can we go now? Chapter 8, really not time travel. As she closed the door, she happened to see sunlight streaming through the glass window onto the floor. Annabelle Kennedy suddenly felt that the days of hardship and mutual support between mother and son were about to end. Annabelle Kennedy didn't know much about William Grant, because they had known each other for less than 24 hours in total. But, just from Ethan Kennedy's fascination with entertainment gossip and ancient costume dramas, William Grant might be a man with many stories. Otherwise, Ethan Kennedy would have no reason to reject William Grant like this. After all, the most important reason why this child rejects men is, they are rivals in love that he cannot tolerate. Moreover, Ethan Kennedy's favorite actress is Jane Miller, who recently became famous for starring in a time-travel idol drama set in the Qing dynasty, and everyone calls this popular actress in the entertainment industry Sister Dandin. When they got out of the car and saw William Grant opening the door for Annabelle Kennedy, Ethan Kennedy threw himself into Annabelle Kennedy's arms, glancing at William Grant with wariness and hatred. Mother, this person is the notorious flower thief in the entertainment industry that everyone fears. Why are you involved with such a despicable and lowly person? A blue vein throbbed on Annabelle Kennedy's forehead, a clear sign of impending eruption. Ethan Kennedy clung to his mother's waist. Mother, we shouldn't stay with these lowlifes. Let this humble son take you to Mount Liang to meet the true heroes. With that, Ethan Kennedy tugged at Annabelle Kennedy, attempting to leave. But before he could pull Annabelle Kennedy away, William Grant, with a sigh of exasperation, scooped the boy up and carried him out of the car. "Ah! You beast! Even a delicate flower like me isn't safe. I'll sue you in the magistrate's court." He kicked his little legs wildly, a sight that amused Annabelle Kennedy as she stepped out of the car. William Grant tossed Ethan Kennedy onto the sofa. Ethan Kennedy scrambled back, then turned, a comical mix of wariness and amusement on his face as he watched William Grant grab his collar, protectively covering his chest. Annabelle Kennedy felt a wave of helplessness wash over her regarding her son. William Grant, on the other hand, found the situation rather entertaining. He smirked, a mischievous glint in his eyes, and took 2 steps forward. Ethan Kennedy, scared witless, turned and crawled away, crying and yelling, "Mother! Help! He's a hooligan! Save me!" Annabelle Kennedy watched her son's tearful pleas and outstretched hand. She paused, then said to William Grant, "He's a lost cause. Just send him to the orphanage." Ethan Kennedy froze, then wailed, "You're not my real mother. I'll sue you too." Ethan Kennedy's loud voice echoed through William Grant's penthouse. Within 2 hours, the entire luxury apartment building knew that William Grant had a 6-year-old child. Some even pretended to have the wrong apartment number, knocking on his door. When William Grant opened the door, Ethan Kennedy innocently asked, "Daddy, is this Mr. your friend?" The knocker, dumbfounded, walked away. A devilish grin spread across Ethan Kennedy's cute little face as he climbed onto the sofa, jumping and shouting, "Ha ha ha! William Grant, William! Let's see how you get out of this scandal. When Miss Dandon finds out you have a kid, she definitely won't date you, kiss you, or go to a hotel with you." Humph. Looking at the boy's wickedly smug expression, William Grant turned to Annabelle Kennedy, "As this child's mother, don't you think he's a bit unusual for a 6-year-old? Annabelle Kennedy replied honestly, "He's definitely not a transmigrator." William Grant. Ethan Kennedy jumped on William Grant's pristine sofa for a long time, but couldn't leave a single dirty footprint. He sighed dramatically, living in such a spotless house really sucks the joy out of life. William Grant choked back a laugh. Annabelle Kennedy was testing out William Grant's new cookware with practiced ease, completely absorbed in the task. Hearing her son sigh, she said to William Grant, "Don't mind him. Come and help me with this gas valve." William Grant walked over and saw that Annabelle Kennedy had turned the gas valve, but no flame appeared. He stood close behind her, reached around, and took her hand, turning the valve off, then firmly turning it back on. Gently, like this. Click. A blue flame ignited on the burner. Chapter 9, "He's my son now too." William Grant tilted his head to look at her, "So, it's on now, right?" His chest pressed against her back, almost enveloping her. Ethan Kennedy stood at the door, his voice icy, "Don't you dare flirt with my mother." William Grant chuckled, turning back to Ethan Kennedy with a sly look. As he passed the boy, he whispered, just loud enough for the 2 of them to hear, "Son, Auntie Danmy is for you, your mother is for me." "You wish." Ethan Kennedy gritted his teeth. Annabelle Kennedy didn't know what William Grant had said to Ethan Kennedy, but it made the boy want to run into her bedroom all evening. But William Grant had locked the door. Ethan Kennedy scratched at the door all night. The next morning, when Annabelle Kennedy opened the door, he was still slumped against it, fast asleep and drooling. Annabelle Kennedy saw William Grant squatting beside Ethan Kennedy, clad only in his sleepwear. His tall, slender frame, even in a squat, exuded an allure that captivated her. Hearing her open the door, he looked up, his handsome face etched with a touch of guilt. "Sorry, I let Ethan sleep outside all night, but don't worry, the air conditioning was set just right, and I covered him with a blanket." Annabelle Kennedy, noticing the soft blanket draped over her son, casually asked, "When did he fall asleep?" 2 hours ago. You were watching him the whole time? Annabelle Kennedy asked, surprised. William Grant nodded, smiling. I find this little guy quite adorable. Oh, he. She gave a nervous laugh. Is that so? Whenever someone complimented Ethan's handsomeness and cuteness, she felt a pang of guilt. Because she knew this little boy only resembled her by 3 parts, the remaining 7 parts were inherited from his mysterious father. And after saying this, people usually asked her who the child's father was. But William Grant didn't ask about the child's father. Instead, he brushed aside the soft hair on Ethan Kennedy's forehead, allowing her to see the boy's face. Look, doesn't this little one resemble me? Annabelle Kennedy looked at Ethan Kennedy's features, then at William Grant's. Then she rushed to embrace Ethan Kennedy. Don't just claim him as your son. I gave birth to him. Even if I'm a single mother and don't know who this child's father is, I won't give up custody to anyone, and I certainly won't sell my child because of poverty. Her overly tense reaction caught William Grant's attention. Is someone trying to take your child? Annabelle Kennedy froze. No. I'm being crazy. I think I overreacted. She didn't know why, but whenever someone held her son, she felt like they wanted to steal Ethan Kennedy away, a feeling of danger and fear. In her mind, a man with an obscured face, holding a newborn baby, repeatedly appeared in her dreams, telling her, you can't raise this child. Can't raise him? She was also very puzzled. This child was clearly born to her, so why did that person say she couldn't raise him? Subconsciously, she began to fear someone would take Ethan Kennedy away. Held tightly in Annabelle Kennedy's embrace, Ethan Kennedy furrowed his brows in discomfort, then mumbled a few times before slowly opening his eyes. He looked quizzically at his slightly tense mother. Mom, what's wrong? Suddenly, Ethan Kennedy noticed the smug smile on William Grant's face. Mom, were you raped by this beast last night? Annabelle Kennedy asked suspiciously. Ethan Kennedy angrily pointed at William Grant's nose. Mom, this guy didn't sleep in his room last night, and he locked Mom's door. He must have done something bad to Mom, right? I wanted to save Mom, but I couldn't break the door down. Boo-hoo-hoo. Seeing her son sobbing in her arms, Annabelle Kennedy turned and looked questioningly at William Grant, wondering what was going on. William Grant patted her shoulder. Since we're legally married, no matter how you look at it, Ethan Kennedy has to accept us. But he's my son. Have you forgotten? He's my son now too. Chapter 10, Maintaining Health. Early in the morning, after freshening up, Annabelle Kennedy took her small notebook and went to William Grant's room. William Grant's door was open, and he was changing clothes, his bare upper body catching Annabelle Kennedy's eye. She felt her nose getting warm and quickly looked up. Mother, your nose is bleeding. Ethan Kennedy cried out in alarm. William Grant seemed to hear the mother and son, and strode over to Annabelle Kennedy. Why is your nose bleeding all of a sudden? Annabelle Kennedy blushed, embarrassed to admit she'd just seen William Grant's bare back. Ethan Kennedy tugged on his mother's clothes, looking at William Grant with disdain. Don't use these low-down tricks to seduce my mother. My mother isn't some lecher. William Grant immediately understood what had happened. Smiling, he reached out and gently lifted Annabelle Kennedy's chin with his long fingers, tilting her head up. Don't move, I'll get some tissues. Silly, you're supposed to rinse it under the faucet. Ethan Kennedy pulled on Annabelle Kennedy's clothes and led her straight into William Grant's bedroom. William Grant's bedroom had an ensuite bathroom. Ethan Kennedy, how did you know your father's bedroom has its own bathroom? Ethan Kennedy gave a strangely sly grin. Because I came to Dad's room last night to scout the terrain. William Grant felt something was off about Ethan Kennedy's expression. Before he could figure it out, he saw Ethan Kennedy, while Annabelle Kennedy was bent over the sink rinsing her nose, quickly pull out a few wads of toilet paper from his pocket, stained with a thick, white liquid. William Grant instantly understood what Ethan Kennedy was planning and quickly covered the boy's mouth. But the child's mouth was surprisingly quick, tugging at Annabelle Kennedy's clothes and exclaiming, "Mom, Mom, look, there's toilet paper here, yuck." Annabelle Kennedy curiously followed her son's pointing finger and immediately saw the wads of toilet paper on the floor, stained with a thick, white liquid. Her face flushed crimson. "Annabelle. William Grant, maintain your health." Annabelle Kennedy cut him off, then took Ethan Kennedy's hand and hurried out. "Come on, Ethan, let's go make breakfast." Annabelle Kennedy pulled Ethan Kennedy hurriedly out the door. At the doorway, Ethan Kennedy raised a haughty eyebrow, the corner of his lips curling into a supremely smug and provocative grin. William Grant's face darkened as he began to seriously consider how to deal with this cunning child. For breakfast, Annabelle Kennedy used ingredients from the refrigerator, making fried eggs, fried ham, along with a sandwich and a glass of warm milk. Ethan Kennedy possessed an unusually refined palate, and after finishing his own meal, he propped his chin on his hand, observing William Grant's eating habits across the table with amusement. Suddenly, William Grant looked up, his gaze meeting Ethan Kennedy's. Ethan Kennedy flinched at the coldness in his eyes, the smile on his face freezing. "Don't even think about killing me with your eyes, I'm impervious to swords and spears." "I know you're thick-skinned," William Grant said in a calm voice. Ethan Kennedy froze for a moment, then ran into the kitchen and hugged his mother's leg, crying, "Mommy," he said, "I'm thick-skinned. He's making fun of me." Annabelle Kennedy looked down at him, "He's just stating a fact." Ethan Kennedy cried even louder, rolling around on the floor, "You're not my real mommy. You're not my real mommy. I want my daddy." Annabelle Kennedy didn't have time for him, nudging his round bottom with her slippered foot, "Get up, it's time for preschool." "No, no, no. I want my daddy." The little boy didn't listen, continuing to roll stubbornly on the floor. Annabelle Kennedy frowned. Then she saw William Grant walk in. He picked the boy up from the floor and hoisted him onto his shoulder. "Good boy, Daddy's taking you to preschool." William Grant and Ethan Kennedy still had some friction between them. Annabelle Kennedy still felt uneasy about letting William Grant take Ethan Kennedy to preschool alone. As William Grant carried Ethan Kennedy out the door, she hadn't even had time to take off her apron before she hurriedly changed into her flats by the door, grabbed William Grant's black cashmere coat from the sofa, and chased after them. "Wait a minute. Why are you following me?" William Grant asked, slightly surprised. Annabelle Kennedy held up the cashmere coat, a stiff smile on her lips. "It's cold this morning. I brought your coat." William Grant chuckled, reaching out to take the cashmere coat. "Thank you." "You're welcome." Actually, she wanted William Grant to put Ethan Kennedy down from his shoulder. But before she could speak, William Grant shifted Ethan Kennedy from his shoulder into his arms and draped the cashmere coat over the boy. "It's cold this morning, son." "Who's your son?" "Don't presume." #### Chapter 11, Treat him like your own. Ethan Kennedy squirmed and struggled, but William Grant held him tight. After placing him in the Porsche's car seat, he personally fastened his seatbelt. "Good boy, stay put." "Why are you putting me in the back?" Ethan Kennedy complained. William Grant opened the passenger door. "Your mom's sitting in the front." Annabelle Kennedy stood still, not moving. William Grant took her wrist. "Get in the car, I don't know the address of the preschool. You have to direct me." Annabelle Kennedy finally understood why William Grant wanted her in the front. Suddenly noticing something on the seat, she asked with a puzzled look, "Why is his backpack in your car?" "I decided to take him to school last night, so I put his backpack in the car beforehand." William Grant said this as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Annabelle Kennedy was stunned. "I'm just your housekeeper. You don't have to be so nice to Ethan Kennedy. A marriage certificate ain't a job contract." William Grant drove calmly, overtaking a car, a gentle and handsome smile on his face, his head slightly tilted as he explained, "What I mean is, after we register our marriage, you're my wife, and I'm Ethan Kennedy's dad." I don't understand why you're doing this. Annabelle Kennedy truly didn't understand William Grant's actions. William Grant turned the steering wheel, you'll understand the reason later. But, the car reached the intersection, cutting off the conversation. Ethan Kennedy's kindergarten appeared ahead, many parents dropping off their children had parked at the school gate. William Grant also parked within the designated parking area of the kindergarten. Then, he opened the car door for Ethan Kennedy, took his backpack, and led him out of the car by the hand. Let go of my hand, Ethan Kennedy felt very strange. William Grant didn't let go of his hand. What's wrong? Dad's taking you to school, aren't you used to it? Ethan Kennedy lowered his long eyelashes, muttering, I'm not your real son. William Grant turned to look at the pale-faced Annabelle Kennedy, then squatted down, adjusted Ethan Kennedy's collar, and said seriously, just think of it as if you are Ethan Kennedy. Ethan Kennedy looked at him, unusually not immediately uttering rebellious words. Ethan Kennedy, silent, looked very beautiful, like a motionless porcelain doll. Pretty children can always attract a lot of attention. Especially such a handsome father and son pair. The young mothers who came to drop off their children couldn't help but pause when they saw such a loving father and son scene. Then, from their astonishment, came excited shrieks, oh my! Look! It's William Grant! It's the superstar William Grant! The woman's scream was almost ear-piercing. Annabelle Kennedy was stunned, not yet able to react to what superstar William Grant meant. She then saw the young mothers and the kindergarten teachers all rushing towards William Grant. I can't believe I can meet William here. Can I have your autograph? William, I'm your fan, can we take a picture together as a souvenir? William. William. Can you sign my bag? I happen to have a marker, here. Annabelle Kennedy was pushed out of the crowd, watching William Grant surrounded, feeling her mind go blank. Although she guessed he was a Cloud City star, she never expected this man's popularity to be so high. Everyone scrambled towards William Grant, regardless of whether they were young mothers, teachers, the principal of the kindergarten, or even grandmothers dropping off their grandchildren, all gathered in the crowd. William Grant was surrounded 3 layers deep. Even more unbearable was that many people pointed their phone cameras at William Grant, zooming in on his face and snapping pictures. Ethan Kennedy, jostling back and forth, looked at William Grant reproachfully, did you intentionally find people to surround me? Of course not, good boy. William Grant's smile radiated like starlight, astonishing many. Chapter 12, Entertainment headlines are all about him, ah. So handsome. He's even more handsome in person than on TV. I can't believe he plays such a cold character on screen, but he's so gentle in real life. Taking his son to school by himself. Wait. William Grant, since when did you have a son? Finally, someone noticed something amiss. And then more and more people started paying attention to the child beside William Grant. Is this your son? Someone in the crowd asked loudly. Annabelle Kennedy woke up with a start, oh no. William Grant was a rising star in Cloud City's entertainment world, and he definitely had to maintain his single status for his acting career to soar. If it was revealed that he had a son now, it would definitely affect his career. Realizing this, she immediately rushed into the crowd, raising her hand and shouting, he's my son. Perhaps this shout was truly too loud. Everyone surrounding William Grant looked towards her, their eyes filled with surprise. She suddenly became the center of attention, and the momentum of her charge gradually diminished under everyone's scrutiny. I'm doomed. She cried out in her heart, this time, people would definitely misunderstand that she had given birth to William Grant's child, and she would be torn apart by his fans. She hurriedly explained, actually, this is my son, William Grant is just. Everyone, William Grant's warm, magnetic voice suddenly interrupted her. Everyone's attention returned to William Grant. William Grant smiled gently, his handsome face impossible to ignore. He led Ethan Kennedy towards Annabelle Kennedy, who was standing not far away. Annabelle Kennedy had a bad feeling. Sure enough, William Grant walked over and put his arm around her shoulder, generously introducing her to the onlookers. "This is my wife, the mother of my son." After a moment of silence, the crowd erupted in a cacophony of chatter. Ethan Kennedy looked up at William Grant, a little exasperated. "Now you've thrown Mom and me into the eye of the storm." William Grant released him and patted his head. "Don't worry, I'll protect you and your mom. Do you want me to take you inside?" "No, no, no." Ethan Kennedy, as if avoiding a ticking time bomb, quickly took 2 steps back, keeping his distance from him. "I don't want people to know I have this identity, stay away from me." After saying that, he put on his backpack and quickly weaved through the crowd, running into the kindergarten. William Grant glanced at the people surrounding them, took Annabelle Kennedy's hand, and smirked. "Can you run? I don't want to be the female lead in a Korean drama." "Then there's no other way." William Grant sighed regretfully. Annabelle Kennedy still didn't understand what he meant. Suddenly, she was lifted into the air. She clung to William Grant's neck in panic. "Are you crazy? Why did you suddenly pick me up?" "Because you refused to run," he chided her. After picking her up, he strode towards his car. The surrounding people were stunned, some reacted after a delayed moment. "My signature." Before the enthusiastic fans could surround him again, he smoothly drove away from the scene. "You really shouldn't have driven Ethan Kennedy to school." Annabelle Kennedy was filled with regret. Holding her forehead with one hand, she worriedly said, "This afternoon when Ethan Kennedy finishes school, there will definitely be a lot of people waiting to see you. I'll have my assistant pick him up." Saying that, he steered the car with one hand and reached for his phone with the other. Annabelle Kennedy heard the engine start-up music and turned her head curiously to look at him. "You're just turning it on now." As soon as she finished speaking, she heard his phone ring. "Hello?" An anxious, questioning voice immediately came from the other end of the line. "William. Where are you right now? Why didn't you turn on your phone? Do you know, you've had your phone off for an afternoon and an evening, and the entertainment news is all about you?" William Grant sighed, not appearing panicked. Under Annabelle Kennedy's gaze, he lowered the volume to speakerphone level and put it to his ear. "We'll talk about it at the company." William Grant didn't give the other person a chance to continue. He hung up after saying that. Just as the call ended, a young man suddenly ran across the pedestrian crossing, ignoring the red light. "Ah!" Annabelle Kennedy's body lurched forward due to the inertia of the sudden braking. Her head hit the glass hard, then everything went dark, and she suddenly lost consciousness. She didn't know how long she had slept. Chapter 13, Unexpectedly, she's still alive. When she woke up, she found herself lying in a pure white room, with a faint smell of disinfectant in the air. The door wasn't completely closed, and the sound of conversation in the hallway drifted in intermittently. "I heard you got married. Thanks to Sophia Turner." William Grant, wipe that smirk off your face. "You think you can just casually find a woman and marry her? I'm past the age for marriage." "But you're an artist. Can you think about the consequences before you do things?" "I've thought it through, that's why I married her." "You're crazy." The man's low voice was full of anger. Annabelle Kennedy blinked, feeling that the voice was very familiar. The man ordered William Grant, "Quickly end the relationship with her, divorce. Divorce immediately." "I'm sorry, I can't do as you say." "Don't you want to stay in the entertainment industry anymore?" Annabelle Kennedy's first reaction was, William Grant was being threatened by gangsters. But, unexpectedly, William Grant's next sentence easily shattered Annabelle Kennedy's guess. "Big brother, although we're family, isn't it a bit much that you're even managing my marriage?" "Big brother? So it's William Grant's older brother," unexpectedly. Annabelle Kennedy thought for a moment, curious about William Grant's older brother. She unconsciously lifted the blanket, quietly got out of bed, and wanted to go to the door to peek through the crack and see what William Grant's older brother looked like. He suddenly heard the man ask, "William, do you think with that woman's status, she's fit to step into the Grant family home?" Annabel Kennedy stopped. The familiar voice continued, "She's not fit. She's not fit. She's not worthy." This statement overlapped with a familiar voice in her memory. Annabel Kennedy frowned, muttering involuntarily, "This isn't a dream." The man holding the baby, whose face she couldn't clearly see, wasn't just a mere dream. Once this truth was established, she wanted to see with her own eyes what this man's face really looked like. Taking 3 steps at a time, she reached the door and yanked it open with one hand. The wind from the flung-open door rustled her hospital gown, the door panel swung back, and her vision suddenly widened. The 2 men talking outside the door froze, their words abruptly cut off. William Grant was wearing the army green jacket she had seen before she fell into a coma. In front of William Grant stood a mature man in a dark suit, his back ramrod straight. The man looked to be in his 30s or 40s, tall, with jet black hair slicked back meticulously. His features did bear some resemblance to William Grant, only his eyes were much colder, his expression stern. Seeing Annabel Kennedy appear, the man's eyes flickered, then paused for a few seconds before revealing a look of contempt and disgust. "I didn't expect you to be alive." Annabel Kennedy carefully assessed the man before her. Although he felt incredibly familiar, she racked her brains for a long time but couldn't recall who he was or his name. "Big brother, please don't curse her, she just bumped her head." The man scoffed, his words dripping with sarcasm, "A woman like you isn't worthy of William. Divorce him, I can give you as much money as you want." William Grant shielded her, "Big brother, I'm the one who doesn't want a divorce. Get out of the way, I want to talk to her." With that, the man's large hand reached out to grab Annabel Kennedy. Annabel Kennedy didn't have time to retreat, about to be caught. William Grant suddenly reached out, gripping the man's wrist tightly, looking him straight in the eye without yielding, "Big brother, she's my wife now, please don't touch her." "William, she's not worthy of being your wife. Whether she's worthy or not is for me to judge, big brother, please don't interfere. Emily Carter has a verbal engagement with you. You married this woman, how are you going to explain this to the Carter family?" William Grant smiled persuasively, "Big brother, as you said, Emily Carter and I only have a verbal agreement. Without anything in writing, it doesn't count as a serious commitment. So, Emily Carter's return won't affect anything." The man tried to wrench his hand from William Grant's grasp, but despite several attempts, he couldn't break free. Finally, he looked at Annabel Kennedy with disgust, "How troublesome. Big brother, don't blame her, I'm the one who insisted on marrying her." The man, upon hearing William Grant's words, grew even angrier, yanking his hand back forcefully. He harumphed loudly and turned to leave. Before departing, he shot a cold glare at Annabel Kennedy. Annabel Kennedy felt the situation spiraling into increasing chaos and complexity. "Is he, like, your big bro?" William Grant turned to look at her. "David Grant, do you know him? Have we met before?" William Grant smiled and shook his head. "No, you two haven't met. It's just that my elder brother frequently appears in financial magazines." "So, he's kinda famous then?" William Grant nodded. "He's the heir to my family's fortune. Anyway, it's cold outside, let me take you inside first." Chapter 14, Lily Brown, returns. Annabel Kennedy felt that recuperating at home would suffice. But William Grant insisted she remain in the hospital for 3 days of observation before being discharged. Sophia Turner visited her several times, each time wanting to speak with Annabel Kennedy, but just as she was about to broach the main point, she would notice William Grant's chilling gaze intimidating her. The woman, with her queenly demeanor, couldn't help but repeatedly clutch Annabel Kennedy's hand, on the verge of tears. "Look at my cousin's glare." Annabel Kennedy followed her gaze. William Grant's face was gentle, his eyes soft. "What's wrong?" Nothing at all. She thought for a moment about Sophia Turner's position, then said, maybe you should pick up Ethan Kennedy yourself today. He should be out of school by now. Seeing Annabel Kennedy's anxious eyes, William Grant immediately agreed, all right. Sophia Turner was overjoyed. Putting down the newspaper, William Grant called to Sophia Turner, take good care of your sister-in-law, and watch what you say. Sophia Turner immediately lowered her head. After William Grant left, Annabel Kennedy nudged her shoulder, Sophia, what did you want to say? I think my cousin is dead set against divorcing you. You're on your own with this one. Sophia Turner abandoned her intention to advise them to divorce. Then, as if remembering something, she suddenly looked up, sister-in-law, do you remember Lily Brown? Sophia Turner's question was tentative, but the name resonated deeply within Annabel Kennedy's memory. So much so that upon hearing it, her face paled. After a moment, her trembling subsided, and she looked up to ask, why bring that up now? Sophia Turner's face was clearly uneasy. You don't know, before Lily Brown went abroad, he warned me not to find you any potential partners. He's crazy. Don't mind him. The name Lily Brown was like an iron thorn in her heart. No, not quite, not an iron thorn, but something far worse, a steel barb. It was such that even after all these years, whenever Annabel Kennedy recalled the name, she felt a stab from that irremovable steel barb in her heart. Seeing Annabel Kennedy's silence, Sophia Turner took her slightly cold hand and sighed, Annabel, it's not that I don't want you to get married, or that I don't want you to find a man to rely on, but you know, Lily Brown has been by your side since he first knew love, he's always felt so strongly about you. Don't mention that heartless scoundrel again, I don't know him. Just the mention of his name made her chest tighten with discomfort. The events of that year truly terrified her. She never knew that a teenager with such adorable cat-like eyes could play her. Like a fiddle, acting one way to her face and another behind her back. The most hateful thing was that this bastard even dared to target her child. She would absolutely never forgive the kind of person who would harm her child and drive her adoptive mother to death. I only tutored him for a few days, we're not close, Sophia. Please don't mention him in front of me again. Sophia Turner, uncharacteristically abandoning her usual bluntness, hesitated and then took her hand, looking at her anxiously, Annabel, actually, I wanted to tell you, Lily Brown is back. This statement was like a silent clap of thunder, leaving her scorched inside and out. She was so startled she nearly jumped out of bed. Wasn't she never coming back? I thought she wanted to settle abroad. Sophia Turner shook her head, he's grown up now, even his father can't control him. Annabel Kennedy's heart plummeted. By the time William Grant brought Ethan Kennedy back, Sophia Turner had left. Ethan Kennedy pushed open the door and ran cheerfully to the bedside, tattling on William Grant without missing a beat. Mom, William Grant heard me talking to a girl at kindergarten and falsely accused me of being a player. Annabel Kennedy ignored Ethan Kennedy, pulling the covers over her head and curling up in a ball. Ethan Kennedy stood there dumbfounded for a moment before realizing he was being given the cold shoulder by his mother. The little boy turned angrily to William Grant, did you make mommy mad? Without a word, William Grant tossed Ethan Kennedy's backpack onto the sofa and called Sophia Turner, what did you say to her? Did you advise her to divorce me? On the other end of the line, Sophia Turner vehemently protested her innocence. Anxious, Ethan Kennedy tugged at William Grant's shirt, wanting to speak on the phone. William Grant reluctantly handed the phone to the boy. Ethan Kennedy chirped, Auntie, what's wrong with mommy? Sophia Turner only said one sentence. Ethan Kennedy froze in shock, even dropping his iPhone 6, which landed on the floor with a thud, shattering the screen. Hashtag Chapter 15, Annabel, grown up in the following minutes, both mother and son reacted slowly. It wasn't until William Grant returned with dinner, setting out 6 dishes and a soup for Ethan Kennedy on the table, that Ethan Kennedy finally snapped out of it and began to devour his food. Aren't you going to wait for your mother to eat with you? Ethan Kennedy shook his head sadly. No need. Even with 10 stomachs, Mommy couldn't eat right now. Why? Ethan Kennedy spoke with rare seriousness, because a student Mommy used to tutor has returned to the country. Is she upset? Heartbroken, restless. Ethan Kennedy used 8 words to describe his mother's state, then requested of William Grant, "Can I have another bowl of egg drop soup?" William Grant ladled a small bowl for him and asked, "Does he have some sort of grudge against you?" Ethan Kennedy looked up at the ceiling thoughtfully. "This is a long story. Make it short." Ethan Kennedy glared at William Grant indignantly. "You're mean. You're being mean to me, and if you're mean to me, I won't tell you anything, humph." With that, the little boy slammed the bowl down on the table, feigning anger. But right after, a loud burp escaped him, completely shattering the tense atmosphere. William Grant didn't need to ask any further. Because Ethan Kennedy's habit was that once he was full, no one could control him. But this time, after pacing around the hospital room twice, Ethan Kennedy deliberately turned to William Grant. "You're done for, that kid is a strong rival." Humph, humph, humph. Annabelle Kennedy remained listless. On the 3rd day, during the discharge procedures, William Grant, truly unable to bear it any longer, invited the hospital's experienced psychiatrist for a consultation. The profound doctor told him 2 words: psychological ailment. William Grant, having read many scripts, naturally knew the most frequent line: psychological ailments require psychological cures. He bundled Annabelle Kennedy up warmly and helped her downstairs. Reaching the car, Annabelle Kennedy looked up at him. "Mr. Grant." "William," she corrected. Resigned, she changed her approach. "William, I want to leave Cloud City." William Grant froze, recalling Ethan Kennedy's words. He curved his lips and draped the red scarf over her shoulders. "I won't ask why you want to leave Cloud City, but Annabelle." His deep, dark eyes gazed at Annabelle Kennedy, his expression utterly serious. "I want you to remember, no matter what happens, don't be afraid. I will always protect you. Always, protect you." Those words touched the seemingly tough but actually most vulnerable part of her heart. Unable to hold back, she burst into tears. Back home, William Grant brought out a bowl of white porridge from the kitchen, a faint, refreshing aroma wafting from it. She touched the soft scarf, frowning slightly. "This porridge smells strange. I added some mugwort, it's good for digestion. Have a little." William Grant gestured for her to open her mouth, as if coaxing a child. Looking at the man's handsome face, she couldn't bring herself to act spoiled. She sighed. "Let me eat it myself." Seeing her uncooperative, William Grant smiled and shook his head, handing her the small porcelain bowl. "You've really grown up, Annabelle." She paused, looking up in confusion. "What do you mean?" William Grant frowned, a flicker of embarrassment from his slip of the tongue in his eyes. As if thinking of something, he gave a gentle smile, covering it up. "Nothing, just a nickname." Annabelle Kennedy didn't ask further. When it was time for Ethan Kennedy to finish school, William Grant took the car keys to pick him up. Before leaving, seeing her curled up on the sofa, he found her adorable and stood there, gazing at her for a moment. Annabelle Kennedy realized someone was watching her, turned around and caught his gaze. She frowned slightly, embarrassed. "Why are you looking at me? You look like a woman now." "I always have been." William Grant's smile deepened, his dark eyes gleaming with an incomprehensible gentleness. "Since you're injured, you don't need to prepare lunch. A Korean restaurant opened today, I'll pick up some food on my way back." Annabelle Kennedy nodded in agreement. After seeing William Grant off, Annabelle Kennedy's phone suddenly rang. Her wandering thoughts were pulled back. Looking at the phone screen, she noticed an unfamiliar number, ###Chapter 16, the eunuch bullies the imperial child, hello. The other end of the line was silent. She inquired, "Excuse me, who are you looking for?" The other end remained silent. Annabel Kennedy took a breath, forcing a smile. "If you don't say anything, I'll hang up." With that, she was about to end the call. But just before she pressed the button, a sigh came from the other end. "President Brown, why aren't you saying anything?" Annabel Kennedy's phone clattered to the floor. Called President Brown. Who else could it be but Lily Brown? The phone dropped, and she no longer had the mind to pick it up. The image of a young man appeared before her eyes. A young man with red lips and white teeth, jet black hair, and cold, indifferent eyes. Fair skin and sharp facial features, undeniably handsome, his high-collared uniform exuding a strong sense of forbidden allure. Thin, gold-rimmed glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. When he smiled, he seemed as gentle as the breeze, but when cold, his eyes behind those glasses were as icy as the mountain snow. Such a young man was the young master of the Brown family back then, cherished like a star in the sky, whether within the family or at school. Yet, he was also stubborn and rebellious. So obstinate that it made people reluctant to approach him. It wasn't until she heard the sound of the door opening that she came back to her senses. "Mother!" Ethan Kennedy joyfully spread his arms, rushing towards her like a fledgling. Seeing the boy's flushed face, Annabel Kennedy stood up and dodged, letting him tumble onto the sofa. Not getting the hug he wanted from his mother, Ethan Kennedy turned to glare at William Grant, who was laughing heartily. William Grant teased, "You lost. You must have said something to mother. That's why she didn't hug me, you despicable scoundrel." Annabel Kennedy had no idea what William Grant and Ethan Kennedy were talking about. She took the bag from William Grant and arranged the dishes on the dining table. The aroma of Korean food immediately filled the dining room. Ethan Kennedy, while exchanging words with William Grant in the living room, quickly became flushed. A few seconds later, Ethan Kennedy stormed into the dining room like a whirlwind, clinging to Annabel Kennedy's leg and crying, "Mother, that eunuch is bullying your imperial child." Annabel Kennedy glanced at the boy. "Don't let mommy hear you call anyone a eunuch again. But mommy only needs me by her side, right?" The boy's eyes glistened with tears. William Grant leaned against the kitchen door, a smile playing on his lips. Annabel Kennedy sighed, "You're just a little chick whose feathers haven't fully grown. You're not my real mom." Ethan Kennedy, feeling humiliated and disregarded, wailed and rolled around on the kitchen floor. Annabel Kennedy finished setting the table and called to him, "Once you're done rolling, get up and wash your hands. We're having braised pork today." "Huh?" Ethan Kennedy immediately stopped rolling, got up, scrambled to the table to look at the braised pork, drooled, and then went to the bathroom to wash his hands. William Grant quietly appeared behind him. After washing his hands, he looked up and saw William Grant in the mirror, instantly shivering, his soul leaving his body. William Grant slowly closed the bathroom door, a mischievous smile on his lips. "My good boy, did you just call me a eunuch?" Ethan Kennedy backed away. "Don't you dare do anything bad. If you bully me, I'll tell Mom to divorce you." William Grant pressed closer, step by step. Backed into a corner by the tall man, Ethan Kennedy couldn't help but want to scream for help. William Grant suddenly covered his mouth and leaned in close, asking, "Do you want Mommy to give you a little brother?" The boy shook his head in terror. "A little sister?" Ethan Kennedy hesitated slightly. Though somewhat tempted, he continued to shake his head. William Grant frowned, his face troubled. "What should I do? To prove I'm not a eunuch, I have to give Mommy a few more kids." Ethan Kennedy's eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets, his horror indescribable. William Grant's smile deepened. "If Mommy has my children, she might not dote on you as much anymore." Ethan Kennedy's legs went weak with fear. William Grant released his hand from the boy's mouth, pulled him closer, and coaxed, "My good boy, do you want a little sister? I'll explain to Mom that you're not a eunuch. Don't worry, leave it to me. #### Chapter 17, Always love you. To prevent this tragedy, Ethan Kennedy resolutely patted his small chest, deciding to go with the flow. William Grant pressed his advantage. That day you threw a roll of toilet paper into my room. That was tissue I used to blow my nose. I'll explain it to Mom. Don't worry, just relax. Seeing how sensible young Ethan Kennedy was, William Grant magnanimously opened the door for him to leave. Ethan Kennedy frowned throughout the meal, his appetite gone. William Grant kept piling food onto his plate, but Ethan Kennedy only took a symbolic bite of each dish. After the main course, William Grant placed a beautiful, gold-foiled invitation on the table. There's a party at the Cloud City Hotel tonight. I'd like to invite you to bring Ethan Kennedy along, William Grant said somewhat apologetically. I have something to do this afternoon and can't pick you two up, but I'll wait for you there. Ethan Kennedy pouted, about to say he wasn't going. But then William Grant smiled gently at him, both coaxing and threatening. My good boy, Sister Dandin will be there too. Ethan Kennedy's eyes instantly lit up, and he hugged his mother's leg, pleading, Mommy, I wanna go, I wanna go. After finishing his lunch, Ethan Kennedy happily went to school. Annabelle Kennedy intended to return to her bedroom. William Grant suddenly called out to her, Annabelle. She paused, turning around quizzically to look at him. William Grant gazed at her delicate features, a faint smile playing on his lips. Have you seen the entertainment news? Annabelle Kennedy shook her head, not yet. Indeed, she hadn't had the chance. On her way home with William Grant, she had a minor car accident and spent the following 3 days in the hospital. When Sophia Turner told her that Lily Brown had returned, she became restless and had no inclination to watch entertainment news. William Grant fell silent for a moment, seemingly disappointed, but he quickly masked the emotion. If your head still hurts, you must tell me. Annabelle Kennedy offered a gentle smile, you worry too much. It's just a small bump, nothing serious. Well, I'm going to rest. Annabelle Kennedy pulled the door open and stepped outside. As the door closed, the smile on William Grant's face faded, replaced by a touch of bitterness. With his phone beside him on the bed, he called his assistant, I'll be arriving early at Cloud City Hotel this afternoon. Please arrange for Ethan Kennedy and Annabelle to be brought there. But, this event is hosted by the Browns. They haven't invited any of your family members. I'm not attending the Browns event as an artist. Do you understand? The assistant's voice on the other end of the line became noticeably quieter, but, young master, the eldest young master doesn't want you to publicize your sudden marriage. Do as I say. His gaze turned cold, his tone stern and commanding. Finally, the assistant couldn't withstand the pressure and conceded, yes, sir. Drive carefully. If you listen to my elder brother and anything happens on the way, don't bother showing up at Starlight Entertainment tomorrow. Yes, sir. Please rest assured. Only after receiving this assurance did the assistant cautiously hang up the phone. William Grant meticulously selected a black three-piece suit, a crisp white shirt, and a purple tie that was both formal and fashionable. After changing, he checked his watch and prepared to leave. Annabelle Kennedy hadn't emerged yet. He gently opened her door, peering through the crack to see her sound asleep on the bed. William Grant approached her bedside, his long fingers gently brushing aside her long hair. He knelt beside the bed, gazing at her face for a long moment before rising and kissing her forehead. He whispered softly in her ear, Annabelle, I've always loved you, and I always will. When Ethan Kennedy finished school that afternoon, he saw William Grant's assistant holding his dark blue coat, waiting in the parent pickup area. The boy walked up to the assistant, who was still anxiously looking towards the school entrance. Mr. The boy called out loudly. Startled, the assistant quickly looked down at the sound and saw Ethan Kennedy standing before him, looking up. Little master, you're finally out. Let's go, let's hurry. You absolutely must convince your mother to wear that little dress, okay? The 30-something assistant, wearing black-rimmed glasses and a devoted expression, took Ethan Kennedy's hand and led him to the car. Chapter 18, For a woman in the car, Ethan Kennedy opened the exquisitely wrapped golden gift box and found a sparkling black mini dress inside. Rather suggestive, huh? The face of the assistant driving darkened. Little master, please mind your language. This was custom-made for Madam by Mr. Grant. My mother? Yes, your mother, Miss Annabel Kennedy. But how did he know my mother's measurements? I clearly didn't see him take them. Ethan Kennedy couldn't help but wonder innocently. The assistant in front pushed up his black-rimmed glasses. Well, you see, husbands and wives, they don't need a measuring tape to know each other's sizes. The highly intelligent Ethan Kennedy immediately flew into a rage. I told you that William Grant is a scoundrel. He wants to get fresh with my mother, that flea. Flea. The assistant corrected him, rogue, little master. Pay attention to your pronunciation. Ethan Kennedy immediately grinned mischievously. You're toast. You dare teach me to call William Grant a rogue? I'll tell him to fire you. See if you dare help him buy my mother this revealing dress again. Little master, you wrong me. This dress isn't revealing, truly not revealing at all. It's alluring. Very alluring. As the assistant explained repeatedly that the dress was custom-made, Ethan Kennedy sarcastically echoed the words "rich guy" more than once. The assistant, drenched in cold sweat from the boy's sharp tongue, nearly collapsed in relief when he finally met Annabel Kennedy. Madam, this is a special gift from Mr. Grant. Please be sure to wear it to the banquet tonight. After delivering the message, the assistant sat down on the sofa and drank some water to calm his nerves. As Annabel Kennedy carried the gift box to her room, her phone rang. She answered, and William Grant's voice came through. Has the little dress arrived? It just arrived. She opened the box and lifted the dress with one hand. The soft fabric and sparkling sequins made it both elegant and luxurious. Wear this. I'll be waiting for you at the hotel. But someone's coming. Call me when you get there. All right, love you. Those last 3 words struck Annabel Kennedy's heart, leaving her speechless and unable to protest. The line went dead. William Grant saw Alex Brown, the host, approaching. Uncle Brown, long time no see. Alex Brown, with a kind face and silvering temples, patted William Grant's shoulder. Indeed, it's been a while, William. Then I'll offer you a toast, Uncle. He raised his glass of golden champagne and gently clinked it against Alex Brown's. They both took a sip. Alex Brown got straight to the point. Why didn't your elder brother come with you? My big brother is a bit tied up. Alex Brown couldn't help but smirk. I think you're telling a fib, William. No, I'm not. News of your whirlwind wedding has spread throughout Cloud City. Is your brother busy dealing with the Carter family? Nothing gets past Uncle Alex. William Grant reluctantly explained, my wife is the woman I love deeply, so I had to decline the arranged marriage with the Carter family. I hope they understand. Alex Brown smiled approvingly, William, if she's the one you love, I support you. I'll help explain things to the Carters. Thank you, Uncle. William Grant showed his gratitude, then looked behind Alex Brown, puzzled. Isn't this party to celebrate Lily Brown's return? Where is she? At this, Alex Brown sighed, that ungrateful child, I can't control her anymore. What happened? William Grant grew more suspicious. Alex Brown looked towards the door with a heavy expression. She didn't return to take over the family business. Then why did she come back? For a woman. Chapter 19, I want you to forgive me. The night was hazy, the roads bustling with traffic. As they approached the Cloud City Hotel, the concentration of luxury cars increased. Ethan Kennedy, wearing a child suit chosen by his assistant, held Annabelle Kennedy's hand as they got out of the car. Annabelle Kennedy's short black dress hugged her figure. The sleeveless round neck design exuded elegance and sophistication, complemented by a delicate, sparkling diamond necklace. Ethan Kennedy beside her shook his head. "Mother, fine feathers make fine birds, indeed." Hearing her son's exclamation, Annabelle Kennedy glanced down at him. "Son, are you dissatisfied with your mother's beauty and grace?" "Just average." Ethan Kennedy sighed, feigning reluctance. The assistant, amused by their interaction, having tried to call William Grant several times without success, suggested, "Why don't you two go in and find Mr. Grant first? Please lead the way." The assistant led them forward, reaching the entrance where a waiter politely asked for their invitations. The assistant turned to Annabelle Kennedy for the invitation. Ethan Kennedy turned away with a sullen expression. "Sorry, I forgot it." The assistant sighed in exasperation. "You can't enter without an invitation, and Mr. Grant's phone isn't reachable. I'll go see if I can find someone I know to send him a message." Annabelle Kennedy nodded and waited at the entrance. After the assistant left, Ethan Kennedy looked around boredly. Suddenly, he flinched back. Annabelle Kennedy looked at him in surprise. "What's wrong?" "Mom. Mom." Ethan Kennedy cowered, hiding behind Annabelle Kennedy, clutching her leg tightly. As if he had seen something terrifying. Annabelle Kennedy sighed. "Ethan, please don't cause a scene right now, okay?" Ethan Kennedy squirmed, wanting to whisper something to his mother. But a slightly cold male voice interrupted. "Teacher." Annabelle Kennedy trembled, then looked up in horror at the speaker. A tall young man strode towards her. A flicker of doubt initially crossed his handsome features, but upon recognizing her, his expression cleared, a smirk playing on his lips. Annabelle Kennedy stared, bewildered, at the approaching man, her brow furrowed in unfamiliarity. "Teacher, it's me, Lily Brown. Don't you recognize me?" Annabelle Kennedy's eyes shifted slightly. As he reached her, she grasped her son's hand and subtly stepped back, putting distance between them. The young man faltered, stopping abruptly, a troubled frown creasing his brow. "Teacher, don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. Ethan, let's go." Annabelle Kennedy turned and walked away, her son's hand firmly in hers. A look of panic flashed across the young man's face. He reached out, grasping her arm. "Annabelle, I'm sincere." His hands, no longer the slender hands of a teenager, were broad and strong, his long fingers trembling slightly. Annabelle Kennedy felt his grip on her arm tighten, as if clutching her heart, leaving her breathless. Slowly turning, she looked down at his hand on her arm, her voice clear and steady. "Let go." "Teacher," he looked at her, his brow furrowed. "There's no need to call me teacher. We weren't truly teacher and student. I only tutored you for 6 months. You don't need to call me that." Annabelle Kennedy tried to pull his hand away with her free hand, but he held on. She looked up, her gaze cool and indifferent. "Lily Brown, you're grown up now. If you feel what happened back then was wrong, consider it repaid. Don't disturb my life anymore." "Teacher, I never truly meant to hurt Ethan." Lily Brown, now 6 feet tall, was much larger than the 5-foot-something teenager he once was. He not only had grown taller but also possessed the imposing presence of a grown man. Annabelle Kennedy didn't want to prolong this encounter. Passers-by were beginning to stare. "Lily Brown, let go. There are people watching. I just want your forgiveness. I've forgiven you. What more do you want?" Annabelle Kennedy looked at this man who had become so unfamiliar. "I want, ###Chapter 20, My Real Son Annabelle." A deep, warm, and alluring male voice smoothly interrupted Lily Brown's impending words. Annabelle Kennedy followed the sound of the voice and saw William Grant, impeccably dressed in a dark 3-piece suit. Ethan Kennedy, seizing the opportunity to take a dig at Lily Brown, tugged at Annabelle Kennedy's shirt, his childish voice reminding her, "Mommy, Daddy's here. Don't be scared." Annabelle Kennedy took a deep breath and pulled Lily Brown's hand off her arm. "My husband's here. Let me introduce you." Lily Brown's hand dropped to his side, staring at her in disbelief. William Grant quickly approached. Annabelle Kennedy reached out to take his hand, but to her surprise, he swept her up in his arms, turning to face Lily Brown. "Lily Brown, what are you doing here?" Annabelle Kennedy spoke up at the right moment, "This is my husband, William Grant." Lily Brown felt deceived. "Sophia clearly told me you weren't married. It happened suddenly. Sophia didn't know. My husband and I had a whirlwind marriage." William Grant feigned surprise. "You two know each other?" Annabelle Kennedy calmly explained, 5 years ago, I was his tutor, teaching him oil painting and sketching." Lily Brown's gaze rested on William Grant's face, a shadow crossing her features. But perhaps due to maturity, her expression quickly adjusted, turning cold as she said, "So, Big Brother Grant had a whirlwind marriage with Annabelle." Annabelle? This intimate form of address alone was enough to prove their relationship wasn't simply that of tutor and student. William Grant lowered his head, observing Annabelle Kennedy's expression. Annabelle Kennedy lowered her eyes, remaining silent. She thought that perhaps after William Grant learned about his relationship with Lily Brown, he would immediately divorce her. However, William Grant curved his lips, taking her hand with a gentle gaze, and replied to Lily Brown, "Indeed, she is my wife now." Annabelle Kennedy was shocked, lifting her head to look at William Grant. William Grant looked at her tenderly, the smile on his face warm and affectionate. Lily Brown's hands, hanging by her sides, unconsciously clenched into fists, her eyes darkening. The party went very smoothly, with many reporters vying to interview Lily Brown about her return to the country. But Lily Brown skillfully declined them all, her assistant taking the interviews instead. Lily Brown drank quite a bit, but her mind remained clear. After finishing her speech in the latter half of the party, Lily Brown went to the restroom to wash her hands. She happened to find William Grant also at the sink and spoke up, "I truly didn't expect you to suddenly marry a woman with a child. If I told you," he paused, smiling, and looked up at Lily Brown in the mirror, his words laced with implication, "that the child is mine, would you find that hard to believe?" Lily Brown was stunned. William Grant placed his hands under the hand dryer. "Lily Brown, you think you knew her earlier than I did, but you know nothing about her life before she was 19. I know everything." Lily Brown couldn't react. William Grant left the restroom. He left with the air of a victor. Lily Brown gripped the sink, staring at herself in the mirror. After a long while, she murmured, "Could it be that my plan was wrong from the very beginning?" In the quiet restroom, no one answered her. Back at the bustling party, William Grant, supporting Annabelle Kennedy's waist, bid farewell to Alex Brown, Lily Brown's father. Alex Brown, surprised to see Annabelle Kennedy, couldn't help but bring up the past incident from 5 years ago. "Miss Brown, I truly apologize for what happened back then." Annabelle Kennedy said nothing, offering no polite platitudes of forgiveness. Though slightly embarrassed by the lack of forgiveness, Alex Brown politely saw them off. On the way home, Annabelle Kennedy remained silent, as did Ethan Kennedy. Upon returning home, Ethan Kennedy obediently bathed and then retired to his room to read and sleep. After bathing, Annabelle Kennedy felt distraught. William Grant placed a large white bath towel on her head, drying her hair. She was much more docile, and even when William Grant lifted her onto his lap, she didn't struggle too much. "Please be polite to me. I'm your husband, you said so yourself. You're an actor, don't you understand the term one-night stand?" William Grant embraced her, gently inhaling the scent of her hair. "I only understand pretending to be sincere." Annabelle Kennedy tried to leave his embrace, but William Grant began meticulously kissing her earlobe and neck, starting his conquest step by step. ###Chapter 21, I also have a story. Annabel Kennedy startled, hastily struggling with her hands. William Grant, gently yet firmly, grasped her hands, holding her close, and nibbled her earlobe. I never knew you also knew Lily Brown. That's my business. She became cold and silent. Is he Ethan Kennedy's father? Don't talk nonsense. She explained, Lily Brown was only 18 when I met him. You were also 18 when you gave birth to Ethan Kennedy. I gave birth to Ethan Kennedy, and 5 months later, I met Lily Brown. How did you meet? He led her step by step to recount the events of the past, his gentle voice masking the trap of probing her past. Perhaps this buried memory was truly too burdensome. Annabel Kennedy didn't resist too much and slowly began to recount the events of 5 years ago. When I was 18, I was in a car accident and lost all my memories. 5 months later, I gave birth to Ethan Kennedy. Vanessa White, the person who hit me, adopted me because she couldn't have children. But half a year after I gave birth to Ethan Kennedy, she became seriously ill, and I had no choice but to work. She had a real talent for painting, as she was originally an art teacher at a kindergarten and had graduated from a specialized college. She heard that the only son of the Browns needed an oil painting tutor, so she applied and was successfully hired. Although outwardly it was a tutor-student relationship, in reality, she and Lily Brown were the same age. Lily Brown was half a year younger than her, also 18. When they were together, Lily Brown's personality was quite peculiar. Because his mother died early and his father was busy with work, the vast Brown estate was occupied only by Lily Brown and the housekeepers. To earn extra money, Annabel Kennedy went to Lily Brown's house every evening to teach him painting. 2 months passed like this, and the quiet and refined young Lily Brown developed vague feelings for her. Hearing this, William Grant suddenly asked her, "Did he confess to you?" "He kissed my finger." William Grant seemed somewhat annoyed. "And your reaction?" "At that time, I really wanted to find a handsome, rich stepfather for Ethan Kennedy, like the male leads in Korean dramas, quiet and melancholic." "Why?" "The pressure of life was too great. Even if I worked 24 hours a day, I couldn't pay off my adoptive mother's medical bills all at once. Moreover, I didn't want Ethan Kennedy to starve." "Why didn't you look for me?" "I was in Greenhaven then, 108,000 miles away, and I didn't even know you." She explained to him. A pang of heartache flashed in William Grant's eyes. "I have a story too, do you want to hear it?" "Your ex-girlfriend?" Her gossipy curiosity was piqued. William Grant reluctantly nodded, then looked at her and said, "I grew up in California. When I was 23, I met a girl. She was 18. I really liked her, but then her family fell apart. Not only did they go bankrupt, but because of mounting debts, her parents jumped to their deaths. So, what about the girl? She was pregnant with my child, and then she disappeared." Annabel Kennedy sneered, "Don't try to fool me with made-up stories. I got her pregnant when she was 18. You're immoral. Let go of me." Annabel Kennedy lost all interest in hearing about Lily Brown. She quickly struggled out of William Grant's embrace, grabbed her bath towel, and headed for the door. "Lily Brown, is he forcing you?" His voice was tense. Annabel Kennedy waved her hand dismissively, "You're overthinking it. While he was interested in me, his father disapproved of me being an unwed mother and forbade him from seeing me. And then?" Annabel Kennedy paused, her voice laced with annoyance. "Then he kidnapped Ethan Kennedy. He wanted to take Ethan away from me. If I became single again, he said he would marry me." William Grant relaxed, leaned slightly, and smiled at her. "Don't worry, I won't mind that you have a child. Accepting you means accepting all of you." Annabel Kennedy stood at the door, finding the smile on his face strange. She quickly reached for the door handle to leave. But when she reached for the handle, the door was locked. She pulled again, but it wouldn't budge. Annoyed, she turned back. "Why is the door locked?" William Grant retrieved the key from the bedside drawer. Here's the key. Annabel Kennedy stepped towards him to take it. But he held the key tightly and shook his head. Not yet. What are you doing? William Grant placed the key under his pillow, put his arm around her waist, and before she could react, pulled her down onto the bed, leaning over her. I didn't know I had a rival before. Now that I do, to ensure a stable marriage, you need to give me a down payment. Annabel Kennedy's lips twitched, a flicker of fear in her eyes as she covered her chest. You wouldn't dare. William Grant blinked, his voice gentle. Why not? I'm just fulfilling my marital duties, Annabel. Come here. His charm made Annabel Kennedy blush as she struggled. You don't have to be so serious. I won't mind. But we're legally married. Give me a little down payment, or I'll worry about someone stealing my wife. Damn it, just as Annabel Kennedy frowned, thinking of a way to escape. A loud bang suddenly echoed from outside the door, abruptly halting their intimate moment. Annabel Kennedy froze. Ethan Kennedy's cry of pain drifted in from the hallway. It seemed the little boy had bumped into something. Annabel Kennedy startled, imagining her young son eavesdropping again, and whispered sharply, Ethan Kennedy, what time is it? Don't you have school tomorrow? Go to bed. Ethan Kennedy was caught off guard. His small, thin frame trembled in the breeze as he hastily righted the flower pot he'd kicked over in his excitement, then pressed his small hand against the door. William Grant, you scoundrel. What are you doing in my mother's room? If you dare do anything bad, I'll call the police and have you thrown in jail. William Grant frowned slightly, finding the child truly bothersome, not only for repeatedly interrupting his good times but also for constantly making threats. Annabel Kennedy, embarrassed, pushed William Grant away and tried to get up. Get out first. My son is outside. He's still young, he can't know about adult matters. Ethan Kennedy strained to hear what was happening inside but couldn't make it out, so he yelled, Mother, don't be afraid. I'll go call the guards and arrest this pervert. William Grant's face darkened as he helped Annabel Kennedy straighten her clothes. What on earth have you been teaching him? Annabel Kennedy's clothes weren't particularly disheveled, but she wanted to get away from him. Seeing William Grant relent, she called out to the door, Ethan, go to bed first. You're. William Grant raised an eyebrow. Hashtag chapter 22, originally mine. Under his stern gaze, Annabel Kennedy stammered a correction, your father isn't bullying me. Be good and go to sleep. Ethan Kennedy, of course, refused to leave, pacing back and forth in front of the door. Hearing that the boy hadn't left, William Grant got out of bed, strode to the door, and flung it open with a bang. Ethan Kennedy stood outside, stunned, glaring at him for 2 seconds before looking around the room. William Grant smiled brightly, crouched down, and gently placed a hand on Ethan Kennedy's shoulder, saying softly, Son, if you don't want your mother to get pregnant with your little sister tonight, you'd better go to sleep. Although he was smiling, his words sent a shiver down Ethan Kennedy's spine. You dare threaten me? William Grant neither confirmed nor denied it. Ethan Kennedy's eyes blazed with fury. William Grant calmly watched the angry boy. Finally, unable to kill him with a stare, Ethan Kennedy spun around and stomped off. Before leaving, he issued a warning, if my mother is missing a single hair tomorrow, I'll risk my life against you. William Grant raised an eyebrow. After the boy had returned to his room, he stood up and went back to his own. Annabel Kennedy was curled up in bed like a caterpillar. William Grant got into bed and, seeing the hidden panic in her eyes, sighed softly. Feeling a twinge of disappointment but understanding that he couldn't rush things, he looked at her tenderly, Annabel, I won't force you. His voice was gentle. Annabel Kennedy relaxed slightly. William Grant loosened her blanket, leaned close to her ear, and murmured, Don't worry, I'll never do anything you hate. But tonight, let me hold you, okay? Annabel Kennedy's body stiffened slightly. But nestled beneath the blanket, held by William Grant, the discomfort wasn't so pronounced. She drifted into a hazy sleep. In her dream, Annabel Kennedy saw William Grant. Only, this dream William was strikingly young, barely in his 20s. His eyes, soft as peach blossoms, were glazed, his forehead beaded with a light sheen of sweat. And when his thin lips touched her, a searing heat flushed through her entire being. He hovered before her, his form, his actions, intimate, with her. Annabel Kennedy shifted, burying her face in the pillow, a blush warming her cheeks. Waking in the morning light, Annabel Kennedy felt a pang of shyness towards William Grant beside her. Even knowing it was just a dream, a lingering awkwardness remained. William Grant prepared breakfast that morning. Ethan Kennedy, sporting dark circles under his eyes, sat at the table, clutching his cutlery, glaring at William Grant in the kitchen. "Mother, was your flower ruthlessly plucked by this lecher last night?" Annabel Kennedy blushed, taking a bite of her sandwich. "Eat your eggs," she mumbled. Ethan Kennedy's egg plopped back onto his plate. "Mother," he declared dramatically, "if he dared to lay a finger on you, you must bravely expose his shameless behavior to the media, and then—" Ethan Kennedy's eyes narrowed. "Ruin him utterly." William Grant, carrying a plate of freshly fried bacon, approached the table. Glancing at the fuming Ethan Kennedy, he calmly sat beside Annabel Kennedy. "Darling, your mother is still contemplating whether to bless your little sister with a descent from the clouds. Do you wish to influence her decision?" Annabel Kennedy, taken aback, turned to William Grant. "William, don't frighten him." Annabel Kennedy meant for William Grant to stop his teasing, but Ethan Kennedy interpreted it as confirmation. Was he truly about to have a little brother or sister? Ethan Kennedy's small face paled. He trembled, glancing at his mother's stomach, his wide eyes nearly bulging from their sockets. His fingers shook as he asked, "Mother, is there really something in there?" William Grant smiled, placing a crisp piece of bacon into Ethan Kennedy's bowl. "Son," he continued, "eat up. You'll need your strength to be a big brother." Annabel Kennedy glared at William. "Ethan, don't listen to his nonsense. He's just teasing you." Ethan Kennedy's color gradually returned, though he still eyed Annabel Kennedy's stomach with a lingering apprehension. After breakfast it was time for Ethan Kennedy to go to kindergarten. As usual, William Grant drove him. Annabel Kennedy intended to go along, but Ethan Kennedy was unusually insistent. "Mother, your dark circles suggest you haven't rested well. At this delicate age, you must prioritize your health. Go back to bed. Having William Grant, that person, to take me is quite sufficient." Ethan Kennedy almost blurted out a less than flattering nickname for William Grant, but seeing his mother's stern expression, he swallowed it back. Annabel Kennedy relented, correcting him gently. "Ethan, it's impolite to address adults by their full names. Remember that." Ethan Kennedy glared at William Grant. "Yes, Mother. I understand," he replied coolly. As he climbed into the car, Ethan Kennedy, his face impassive, addressed William Grant. "Let's go, William Grant." William Grant. On the way, William Grant glanced at Ethan Kennedy in the rearview mirror, tossing and turning with a sour face, and sighed, "Sweetheart, just tell me what's wrong. Your mom's already been sent away by you." Hearing this, Ethan Kennedy sat up straight, a serious expression on his face. "Listen up, old man, we need to have a little chat about life." William Grant couldn't help but chuckle. "Son, your life's purpose is to protect your mother, but your mother is now, my woman. Understand?" Ethan Kennedy's whole body shook. Feeling like his mother had been stolen, he flew into a rage. "You dog thief. How dare you even think about my queen mother? I'll fight you to the death." With that, thump, he lunged forward. 15 minutes later, Ethan Kennedy was pulled out of the car with a large bump on his head. William Grant frowned, but couldn't suppress a grin. "Sweetheart, I won't steal your mother away, because—" Ethan Kennedy looked up at him, sensing that this man was about to utter some classic line that would move him to tears. "Unfortunately," William Grant said seriously, "because your mother was originally mine. I'll fight you to the death." Ethan Kennedy lunged forward again in a frenzy. The surrounding parents taking their children to school turned to look, utterly astonished. Noticing the stares, William Grant whispered to Ethan Kennedy, "That little girl in the red dress is looking at you." "Huh?" Ethan Kennedy froze, immediately ceasing his frantic actions and turning to look at the little girl by the road whom he had startled. The little girl seemed to recognize William Grant, and the lollipop in her hand dropped to the ground with a thump. Ethan Kennedy felt embarrassed, thinking he had scared her. But the next moment, the little girl screamed and rushed towards William Grant. "It's William Grant. My idol." Ethan Kennedy was instantly bewildered. 10 minutes later, William Grant saw off the little girl who had asked for his autograph and a photo. Looking down at Ethan Kennedy, who no longer had the crazed look from before, William Grant heard him say seriously, "Taking my mom is one thing, but now you're shamelessly competing with me for girls too." Chapter 23, Some kind of bet. William Grant spread his hands. "Didn't you see just now? She came running over herself." Ethan Kennedy stomped off angrily, "With a philanderer like you, I firmly demand that mom divorce you." "Son, my love is only for your mother. What your mother and I have is true love. If you don't choose me, then you can only choose Lily Brown." Hearing this, Ethan Kennedy's little heart trembled, and he reflexively refused, "I don't want him near my mom." William Grant nodded, "Therefore, I'm the most suitable person." Ethan Kennedy said listlessly, "I'll give you a probationary period. If you dare do anything funny, just stop overthinking it," William Grant said, soothingly ruffling the boy's hair, quite exasperated. "Every day you're like a radar scanner. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't have the chance." "Good to know." Ethan Kennedy pouted, finally entering the kindergarten with peace of mind. William Grant finally reached an initial agreement with Ethan Kennedy. He absolutely wouldn't do anything unreasonable with Annabelle Kennedy. Ethan Kennedy and William Grant both felt a sense of revolutionary accomplishment. William Grant dropped Ethan off at daycare and then drove to Starlight Entertainment. Starlight Entertainment held a monopoly on the entertainment industry in Cloud City. It was also an asset under William Grant's name. As William Grant entered the company, a man in a sharp suit, his face etched with worry, rushed towards him. William Grant raised an eyebrow and sidestepped the oncoming man. He politely stopped the man with a hand to his chest. "Lucy, you should rein in these flamboyant embraces." The man awkwardly corrected him, "CEO Grant, this isn't an embrace. And also, don't call me Lucy. I'm Oliver West, Oliver West." William Grant shrugged. "All right, Lucy." Oliver West, William Grant's manager, decided not to argue with him about this tedious matter. He grabbed the morning edition of the Lianqing newspaper from the secretary trailing behind him and began seriously questioning William Grant, who was also an artist. "CEO Grant, even though you're the boss, I'm under immense pressure. I can understand your shotgun wedding and child, but the media doesn't. Every day, I'm bombarded with calls from the media and news outlets demanding explanations. You have to give everyone an explanation." William Grant smiled. "Oliver West, there's no need to explain. Just tell them whatever you think is appropriate." He had never considered hiding the truth about his shotgun wedding. Oliver West was practically losing his mind. David Grant, William Grant's older brother and the ultimate boss, had ordered him to even beg William Grant on his knees to dispel the rumors and protect his reputation. Yet, William Grant had the air of someone acknowledging the truth, not a rumor. Oliver West spoke seriously, "CEO Grant, as you know, rumors are the biggest nuisance for an artist. We, the Grants, can suppress the news of your marriage and child. Now, regardless of what you're thinking, for everyone's benefit, please immediately hold a press conference to clarify this matter with the media." Just say the marriage and child are completely false rumors. As long as William Grant was willing to speak up, the Grants could use all their resources to restore his reputation. Moreover, given William Grant's influence, his fans would likely forgive him. William Grant narrowed his captivatingly beautiful eyes, his smile gentle yet unwavering. Oliver West, calm down. You're a golden manager, after all. You can train plenty of other artists. I'm just here today to tell you I'm taking some time off. Cancel all my engagements for the next 2 months. He spoke casually. Oliver West wanted to cough up blood on the spot. Time off. Time off. What time off? You can't take time off. Your older brother, Chairman Grant, will kill me. CEO Grant. CEO Grant, reconsider. CEO Grant. William Grant walked out, Oliver West trailing behind him, humbled like an innkeeper's assistant. William Grant glanced at him, resigned. This isn't negotiable. My marriage leave starts today. You handle things. With that said, disregarding Oliver West's dumbfounded expression, she strode away on her long legs and drove off. Overwhelmed by fury, Oliver West finally crumpled, collapsing to the side. The little secretary rushed to support him. Mr. Oliver, you can't faint now. At this critical moment, you have to pull yourself together. Think of us. Oliver West gasped, I can barely save myself, let alone think of you. The little secretary encouraged him, big fish eat little fish. You can ask Chairman Grant for help. Oliver West pondered this, finding it reasonable, and pulled out his phone, dialing a number. Hello, is this Chairman Grant? This is Oliver West. The thing is, there's something I need to discuss with you regarding CEO Grant. It's like this. Oliver West earnestly explained the situation. After finishing his business, William Grant personally went to the kindergarten to pick up Ethan Kennedy. From afar, he saw Ethan Kennedy obediently walking out of the school gates. Behind the little boy, a group of prettily dressed girls trailed along, whispering and chattering. Ethan Kennedy frowned and turned around, and the group of girls immediately fell silent. William Grant, observing this scene, raised an eyebrow slightly, waiting for Ethan Kennedy to approach. Ethan Kennedy didn't recognize him with his sunglasses on and looked around, prompting William Grant to speak. Sweetheart, it's Daddy. Ethan Kennedy glanced at him, furrowed his brow, and walked towards him reproachfully. Why are you here again? Before he could finish his complaint, he heard a chorus of screams. Ah, it's William Grant. My Prince Charming. I want to marry you. The little girls rushed towards William Grant. Ethan Kennedy, like a small leaf, was jostled and pushed by the excited little girls surrounding them. William Grant quickly pulled the little boy into his arms, using him as a shield. Little ones, you're Ethan Kennedy's classmates, right? But Ethan Kennedy has to go home now. Can we see each other tomorrow? Go home to your parents now. It turned out that Ethan Kennedy's current charm was non-existent, and William Grant's distinguished older bachelor appeal was the real draw. The little girls, after hearing this, were reluctantly dragged away by their mothers, a mixture of love and resentment in their eyes. Ethan Kennedy, seeing his smugness, burrowed his head into the car, fuming, "You're always stealing my girls. I won't forgive you." William Grant couldn't help but chuckle, rubbing his nose as he got into the car. Passing by a flower shop with an elegant arrangement, William Grant stopped to buy a large bouquet of roses. Ethan Kennedy scoffed, giving him a sidelong glance. Who still gives flowers these days? You're such a broke, country bumpkin. William Grant's face darkened. Don't be so sharp-tongued. These are for your mother. Do you want your mother to marry a broke, country bumpkin? Ethan Kennedy snorted coldly. Humph, my mother isn't that shallow. Your tricks won't work on her. William Grant smiled. So, want to make a bet? Ethan Kennedy, unafraid, lifted his chin. Bet then. I'm not scared of you. My mother and I are one. Just prepare yourself. ####. Chapter 24, Fresh Flowers for a Beautiful Woman. He finished speaking, deliberately crawling from the back seat to get closer to William Grant. Tell me, what's the bet? William Grant smiled, thought for a moment, and said, how about this? I haven't figured out what to bet on yet, so the loser has to agree to one condition from the winner, unconditionally. Do you dare to bet? Ethan Kennedy furrowed his brow, looking at him suspiciously. Are you sure you'll win?